At the most basic level, what is a surrogacy contract and what does that process look like?
The legal point of a surrogacy contract is that everyone writes down their promises, and if one party, one side, breaks their promise, then the other party, or what we call the aggrieved party, can get a court involved to what we call enforce the contract. In reality, it is exceptionally very, very rare that courts get involved in surrogacy contracts. The purpose of them is really more logistical and emotional and intellectual because it helps the parties write down what they plan to do. And even though they've often talked about it in depth, sometimes in the best cases, they've talked about it in depth with outside parties, with mental health professionals, seeing it written down and talking to a lawyer about it really helps them get a deeper understanding of what they're signing up for. The intended parent's attorney writes the contract on their behalf. And then in my case, I send it to them, ask them to review it on their own. And then we schedule a Zoom meeting and we go through it together and cover their questions, any changes that they want to make. And then I will send the intended parents a revised version of the contract for them to review with my changes or the things that we've discussed outlined in the margins so they don't have to hunt for what we've discussed. Sometimes there will be another meeting because they have more questions. Sometimes they'll say, this is great, and I will clean it up so that what we've discussed is not still visible. And then we send it to the surrogate's attorney who will do essentially the same thing. She'll send it to the surrogate for review prior to a meeting. Then generally they'll meet via Zoom. And meeting via Zoom is helpful because it's nice to be face-to-face, but also because then they can screen share and be looking at the contract at the same time.
Oh, nice.
And so that's kind of how the review proceeds. And then they do the same thing. They go through any questions the surrogate has. If there are any changes, usually there are, then they'll make them together, and then the attorney will send it to her client. Surrogate reviews it herself, and then they send it back to the intended parents. And sometimes that will go back and forth a few times, particularly if the attorneys are not used to working together, gotcha. Or if either side just has really strong feelings about the contract. But then generally speaking, the parties come to an agreement. They accept all of the changes, clean it up, and create what's called an execution copy. And then now, because of my professional organization's rules and several state statutes, generally it would be notarized. All the parties would sign in the presence of a notary.
So why is it so important for each party to have independent legal counsel review the contract?
That is so important because the parties often think that they have the same interests walking in. And even if they are family, they don't have the same interests walking in. They have naturally conflicting interests. Even though they want the same thing, their interests, they often diverge. Usually not in a really important way that would break the match, but certainly they need their own attorneys to protect their interests.